So, apparently last night or late afternoon, the Biden administration, I believe it was between 7 and 9 o'clock Pacific time, last afternoon sent a missile attack, a rocket attack towards Syria. This was apparently, quote unquote, in response to the rocket attack that happened previously, I think about a week ago, that killed an American contractor over near Iraq from by Iran and Iraqi forces. Uh, it's odd that the United States chooses to respond this way, being that we're in another sovereign country's nation, and they feel that it's their kind of right to be in the nation and be the world police, as a lot of United States analysts view themselves as, in the United States as. But I'll kind of run down the attack that happened in Syria. So, from the different reports I read about 3 different articles trying to see how many were killed, and there weren't exact estimates. One had it at between one person killed and quite a handful of people injured, to quote unquote a handful of combatants killed. So they're alluding to like 10 or 12, and then a large, substantial amount of people injured. This was near East Syria, near the border of Iraq and Syria. They were targeted towards Iranian militias that were apparently, from their intelligence sources, running arms into Syria, because the ongoing severe Syrian civil war has Iran, Iraq, and Syria, and also Russia, on the same size as the government, as the coalition backing the government. Those opposed to the government are going to be, the U.S., Saudi Arabia, most of the Western powers, and Turkey, believe it or not. And then, of course, there's kind of the big name that's against them is ISIS and ISIL. Why the United States is almost helping ISIS and ISIL and the rebel forces in a way is kind of odd, but not really that odd if you think about it, because at one point the United States was directly funding ISIL and ISIS and Al Qaeda. It's almost like the United States at this point is getting bolder and honestly doesn't care about who they're helping or what they do, which has been kind of evident over the last couple of decades. And they're just getting more emboldened and empowered with it, because if you look towards what happened with Iran and Trump, where he killed Soleimani and a few dozen soldiers from Iran, that could have sparked a war. Clearly it didn't, because Iran knows they would have been vaporized off the fucking map. But it just goes to show that the United States, there is no limit, there is no boundaries when it comes to what they will fucking do to protect their oil. Because that's what it comes down to in the Middle East. It's never been about the geopolitical chess game. It's never been about policing these different countries. It's not even about furthering alliances. It's always been about mineral wealth and oil. That's all it's ever been. In Syria, it's oil. Afghanistan, mineral wealth. Iraq, oil. Saudi Arabia, oil. That's all it's ever been. The only differences with Israel is that they use them as like their shadow hand to go on and just oppress as much as they can, and to just kind of do their little thing off in the Middle East. And that's kind of like their little kid or sibling in a way, that they'll have to rein in from time to time when they're, off doing silly stuff like oppressing Palestinians and murdering people and slaughtering innocent civilians. The usual Israeli stuff. It seems that this is almost kind of connected to what happened in the beginning of the Biden administration, because within, I believe, a week or 2 weeks, I'll be generous and say 2 weeks, of the beginning of his administration, he rolled in what reports say were about 40 large truck convoys into Syria, into an oil refinery to, as an official said, quote, protect the strategical assets there. What they mean by that is just take the oil and protect the oil. That's all it is. It's always been about oil. It's all the United States really wants. And it's costing trillions upon trillions of tax dollars every year. That tax dollars could be going towards, you name it. Cutting budget, the fucking military budget. It could go towards housing, schooling, cutting debt, Medicare, the free healthcare during a fucking pandemic, mind you. Go towards a plethora of things. but it just keeps going and going and going towards the military. A lot of these Congress people, when you want to propose a $15 minimum wage, when you want to cut student debt, when you want to cut medical debt, they always ask, well, how are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for this? How are you going to pay for that? How much is this going to cost? But when you give an $80+ billion budget increase, mind you, it would only cost $56 billion to cut student debt. When you give that $80 billion budget increase to the military, nobody says a peep. Nobody says anything. Nobody asks how we're going to pay for it. No one asks how much it's going to cost. They just bend over, spread their cheeks, and say, yep. It's a shame, really. And really, the people who vote against it are just kind of virtue signaling voting against it. A lot of those people, even if they don't believe we should have a large military, they don't have the courage or the fucking balls to stand up and say this is wrong. Because they'll be institutionally blackballed from Washington. That's why you even see people like the Squad, ironic enough, have yet to make a comment about the Syrian strikes. I checked all their Instagram posts lately. Nobody's made a thing of it. I've seen Ilhan Omar retweet a couple things and like a few things actually this morning. None of them pertaining to Syria. Odd the way that goes. Even though they were talking about, people were talking about how progressive Biden was going to be and how he was going to be the next FDR. Odd words to choose for Biden. So I'm hoping that, the Squad will stop going more and more towards centricism, stop going towards that corporate elite, and actually stand up. Because I would like to think their intentions are good. I hope their intentions are good. But it seems more and more they're trying to do this go along to get along type thing where, oh, we'll do anything you say, Pelosi, Biden, throw in a corporate fucking Democrat, whatever name you like, Kamala. We just want this one little thing, and then these corporate Democrats are, all right, you have to do this multitude-mile long list, support everything I say, and then we'll maybe get you your little fucking $15 minimum wage, mind you, which is, and it's an upgrade nonetheless, but it's nowhere where we should be if we actually follow the way economists have tracked real job and wage growth. So, I'm hoping the Biden administration lives up to their promise of them being the most progressive administration since FDR. I don't see that coming to fruition whatsoever. I see him doing the exact same shit Trump was doing, except the blue dogs, the blue check blue dogs, the swallow anything with a big D on it. Those type of people, just defending it because it's, not Trump or it's better than Republicans. That's a shitty argument. That's a really fucking bad argument. Just because Democrats are bad 80% of the time and Republicans are bad 95% of the time doesn't mean that we should always just keep voting Democrat every single fucking time. Not saying we should vote Republican, but there needs to be a third party option. And from the statistics I ran, as of 2020, third party options are rising right now. Libertarian Party, the Green Party, the Peace Party, the Freedom Party, all these Freedom Party's not technically a third party yet, but it more than likely will be. And if it's not, it's kind of its own party within the Republican Party anyways. But nonetheless, third party options are going up. I'm hoping within the next decade, or even 2 decades, that there will be a viable third party option. And I'm hoping that that option isn't just some libertarian type, I'm not saying libertarian in the right-leaning libertarian, not even left-leaning libertarian. I'm hoping this will be some sort of workers' party, something that is people are willing to fundamentally change policy and not just sit around and let everyone, corporations bully them around, letting all these fucking Washington D.C. swamp people bully them around. Because it's just fucking sick to me that people can work their entire life making this garbage minimum wage and not see a single pay increase, not see a single increase in the quality of their life. Mind you, their bosses are getting multi-million-dollar pay increases, like what happened with the Obama administration and the Trump administration. They both did this. So what happened was when they had their economic depressions and recessions, Obama with the housing crisis and Trump with the pandemic, what did they do? The people who were the most guilty when it came to people losing their jobs, losing their homes for Obama, was the banks. What Obama did was give those executives multi-million-dollar and billion and trillion-dollar
He gave the businesses $1 trillion and gave the executives $1 million. So he gave the businesses, the banks, $1 trillion subsidies to fix to remedy the problems. They fuck up, ruin the economy, and ruin people's lives, and then they get $1 trillion payback. You know where a lot of that money went to? It didn't go towards remedying the situation, putting money back into the banks, putting money back into people's hands, remedying bad loans, giving out toxic assets. No, none of those people were restituted. Where did that money go? Straight into the pockets of the executives and CEOs working at those banks. For Trump, the same thing. Trump gave out two multi-trillion-dollar business subsidies. The first one was directly towards big business. Second one was a small business loan, but it was estimated around 60 to 70%, probably more towards 70 and 80%, went towards big businesses, even though it was a small business loan, quote unquote. That money went directly. So, for example, Boeing and even Chevron, they got these multi-billion-dollar subsidies to not lay off and fire employees. And what did they do the second they got the subsidies? They laid them off. Boeing laid off, 10,000 people? And within a few months later, got another subsidy. It's fucking ridiculous, man. It's fucking ridiculous. So, let's just hope that something changes. I'm hoping that... So there's a growing movement. There's a growing left-wing movement among working class people. You go on the internet, you see all the different outrage against the left and the right, against the corporate left and right. You see there's a growing movement. Even on the right, too. There's a growing, unanimous workers formed movement that's not even, it wasn't consciously thought to put together, but it's growing, and it's getting, the working class people are tired of getting fucked. We're tired of losing trillions of tax dollars to getting fucking oil from these third world, not even third world, these, countries over in the Middle East. We're tired of ruining these countries, overthrowing these countries for oil, or wasting trillions of dollars. Will it ever change? It's a good question. I hope. Probably not in the foreseeable future, because people are too divided and too partisan down their party lines to really question authority. So I just want to get that off my chest, because I see a very little lack of reporting on this, and even conscious thought about why this happened from the mainstream media and mainstream political actors. So I'll see you guys later.